hiring costs a lot of money, both in dollars and also in time. So time is money, and somebody's got to train somebody new. We got to onboard them. We got to get them all their credentials and their computer and their this, their that, their that. And then it can become cumbersome. And so there's times when, all right, let's just not shake things up. Good enough to move on. We don't want to bother with this. And you're not ever getting a better person because you've just sort of plugged somebody in, and it's exhausting and expensive to get somebody new, which is why it's so important to do it correctly on the front end.
Wow, Tiffany just dropped some gems right there. Based on her extensive experience and academic background in psychology, Tiffany has a data-driven approach to organizational dynamics. You don't hear that every day. Now, our guest today is none other than Tiffany Slowinski, owner of Team Spark Advisors. She emphasizes the importance of data-driven decisions when it comes to team personnel. She goes into detail why it's necessary to fire a person who is no longer a fit in your company in order to hire the right person in the right seat. Have you heard this before? But business owners have a hesitation to do so. If building winning teams resonates with you, you'll want to listen to this interview with Tiffany. Hi, everyone. We have Tiffany here with us today. And I've met Tiffany through a networking group called Nexco. So shout out to them for introducing us, having the opportunity to meet each other. Tiffany, you want to share a few things about yourself and what you do?
Yeah. So I have Team Spark Advisors, and with that, I utilize the Culture Index, which is a diagnostic tool that helps me help companies put the right people in the right seats. So I help companies to hire, empower, and retain top performers.
And Tiffany, that's always a struggle for any business owner, not just law firm owners, of course, but I've joined several business peer groups recently, and it seems to be a recurring theme for us owners.
There's not a room I go in of business owners when I bring up this topic. Almost every head in the room is nodding because everybody has people problems. None of us are experts at hiring, and even people who are maybe considered experts still make mistakes with that. It's really hard to know who somebody truly is based off of their resume and interview skills.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I seem to get that concern all from top to bottom. So we're all, we now more, at least my peers, my friends, were more cognizant to at least attempt to find what do you call top grade or all-star player, I guess, if it was related to sports. So I know you have a lot to share with that. So thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, I appreciate you having me on.
Now, when you have a new client, for example, what is the first things you encourage to start with?
I always like to get a baseline on everybody in the company. I like to say from CEO down to janitor, we want to know who's there because that helps guide future decisions. Who's going to work well with you, John, is different than who's going to work well with me. So based on the current dynamics, we want to have an understanding of the existing teams and now what's going well, what isn't, uncovering why that is. And then I help companies with better communication, motivation, help drive those performers to increase revenue. And then the other piece is now, as we're hiring, what is the archetype, the personality of a person who's going to fit into that existing structure? Who's going to work well in that position on that team within that specific company?
That makes sense. So it's having some kind of scorecard before you even create, or at the same time creating the job description.
Yeah, it's really having data there. So not just gut instinct, how I feel about something, or somebody presents well, or they've told you, oh, I've done this for years, and they have a track record. I mean, that happens a lot with the companies I'm working with. I'm working with one business right now, and he's having an issue with one of his employees, and he was confused, and he came to me and said, I don't understand. He did this for 20 years at another company before this. I don't know why I'm having such struggles with him. And I said, okay, he's done it for 20 years. Does that mean he was good at it for 20 years? Just because somebody's done something for 20 years doesn't mean that they were excelling in that. So years of experience does not always denote ability.
Wow, that's a big one right there because I hate to say it's almost like any profession. It's like, oh yeah, just default to like number of more years experience. Like, oh, they're great at that. But maybe
Oh, they
someone,
know my industry, right? They've been in the industry. So that's a big hurdle a lot of times is we get really caught up as business owners with knowing the inside and outs of my business, my industry. Oh, well, somebody's never worked in this field before. And a lot of times it's minimal actual industry knowledge needed if they have the skill set and the personality to do the role. They can learn the industry knowledge. Now, I'm not talking about things like, being a doctor. Yes, we need certain education. But for a lot of roles, we really overemphasize how much industry knowledge is needed. And that is the easy part. That can be learned, that can be taught. What you can't teach is making somebody turn themselves into a personality they're not. I'm not a detail-oriented person. I can use systems, processes, tools to help me behave in a more detailed way, but I'm not going to wake up one morning and suddenly be as detailed as someone like you, John, where that comes naturally to you.
you know what, Tiffany, and a lot of my colleagues and friends, there's like, you know what, I don't know if I can train this person. And I think back to like sports, but I also remember one of our prior conversations that you said like, yeah, this data set, this person doesn't appear to be able to train. That's quite interesting that you can tell that from the assessment.
I like to say there's no wrong people. There's just right people, right seats. And when you put somebody in a position that it's their natural glory, they're going to excel in it. Nobody likes to go to work and fail every day. And employees are cognizant of this. When I have one-on-one discussions with employees and companies, they will tell me things that they don't tell their boss. They are often very aware of what's not going well. They're often very unhappy because of that. They don't want to be just put in this position that doesn't work for them, but they don't know how to get out of it. And now they've maybe been, a lot of times I see we take our best worker and like, let's promote them into management. Well, they were a great worker, but they don't have this right personality type to be a great manager. And so they were super content doing what they were doing before. And the idea of a promotion was appealing to them. But then they get into this new position and they really struggle in that role. And they really miss the job they were doing before where they were excelling.
Yeah, that's a misconception. Like they likely want a raise, but not a job title promotion.
Right. And it's not to say, oh, nobody could ever become a manager, right? Like, and also you don't get to necessarily start your career straight in leadership. There's people come in, they've got these personalities of leaders and they're like, they feel stifled. They're in these positions where they don't have a ton of autonomy. They have to really do what they're told. And when you identify that early, you can put them on track to leadership. So it might say, okay, like you have no experience yet. I can't throw you straight in senior leadership here, but you've been identified as somebody of ability. We're going to fast track you, but you still have to go through those steps. But when somebody knows that that's coming, they can withstand those years in positions that you're like, okay, I'm learning here. This is not my end goal, but I'm here because they recognize there's a brighter future. Otherwise, a lot of times those leaders, those people who have those natural abilities, they're in these lower level positions because they're earlier in their career and they get snatched up by other companies because they don't realize that there could be growth potential where they currently are.
Okay, sounds good. So is that, no, well, that's so true because I've heard of people that just quit on the spot without any kind of notice, and everyone's wondering, everything seemed great.
Wow.
Right?
Most of those things are not as impulsive as they might come across, although there are personalities that are more impulsive.
Well, maybe not so drastic for every scenario like that, but I think it's a reflection, at least for my part, to share with others that are watching this, is that at least I try to be intentional, but there are some times you realize, oh, I missed that mid-annual review for my team member. And I think especially lawyers, we just we didn't put on a calendar. We're our own HR, and we put other court dates, other deadlines on the calendar, we should do the same thing for HR type of significant events like that.
Oh, absolutely. You don't want to accidentally miss
Yeah.
your review. And also, employees like those because it gives them an opportunity to get feedback, but also give you feedback as well.
Absolutely. That's
But
right.
I see it's easy, especially smaller businesses, right? It's easy to skirt over some of those things. And then you don't realize there's a problem. Or on the flip side is, one business I was just speaking with right before this, she just did a performance review, and he started crying in the review, and she was like, I'm so confused right now. And he said, I can't believe you haven't told me these things. I didn't know that this was going on. I can't believe you've never said anything to me, and you've been so unhappy with my work, and I had no idea.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it could work both ways, whether the feedback was positive or negative. Yeah. It's just, we should tell them in advance, like soon as possible. And
holding off never helped anything. And I deal with this a lot with businesses. It's, well, maybe they'll get better, or maybe I just need to train them more. And that's when a tool like the Culture Index really comes in, because it gives me data points to say, no, this isn't going to change. It hasn't changed. It's not going to. Or maybe there's something else going on here. This person is showing innately that they are able to do what you're asking. So let's look at other reasons why this might not be working. Is there a conflict between leadership and this person? Are there issues going on in the office? Let's explore that. This person does show potential. So it even gives you a tool to understand, is this one to keep working on? Or is this one to say, let's cut our losses? Because nobody ever lets somebody go and thinks, wow, I really wish I would have kept them on longer. It's always, wow, I really should have done that much sooner. And it's hard when we don't know what can change and what can't.
So like you said, Tiffany, we need the data for sure.
It helps.
Yeah, just like in industry, for sure. It's interesting because most industries use data for the actual service or product they sell, right? But we often don't think about that for our own team to create that product or provide that service. So, Tiffany, that's a wealth of knowledge right there that you are able to share with others. Now, for your time, I'd like for you to share, like, how do you, like, what do you provide as your service in addition to what you said? Because I know you provide some kind of annual service as well.
So I'm a consultant. I'm not just here to take a survey and we'll read them and then go sing Kumbaya, and then you take the survey results and you're like, oh, that's interesting, and you shove it in your desk drawer and you don't look at it again for 6 months. I help come in and advise leadership on their teams, their people, and I help them make improvements to help drive revenue. Because at the end of the day, companies are making more money, they're happier. That's the end goal. I work with visionary business leaders that are growing. They want to grow their businesses. They know that human capital is a step towards helping that.
Thank you for sharing that, Tiffany. And I know one of the things that my peers have been looking at is like, okay, is this person more of a just get it done type of person, or also specifically to kind of like a sidekick to the business owner visionary, if the team member is an implementer. And I'm sure your data can show something like that.
100%. I mean, depending on the role, a person being a just get it doneer, actually that can work. In other roles, that's catastrophic.
Yeah.
But again, you're talking, sometimes small businesses, small firms, people wear more than one hat. And one of the clients I'm working with, it's exactly that. And so it's like, okay, this person needs to be able to do more than one thing, but where do they spend the majority of their time? What's the most important? We can modify for short periods of time to do certain things when we have to. But if 90% of their role is they have to be able to be an integrator, then you better have somebody who can dive in on the details and get in there and be strategic and parse through things. Whereas if a person's main role is more, say, business development, then you want somebody who can form relationships, be a hunter, go out, get those leads, close the business. Those are, two different things there.
There's a lot to learn from you because, I think most of us, at least the lawyer owners I know, that's like, yeah, I think they're doing a good job. And I asked them, have you done a performance review? Have you talked to your team member intentionally about it? Yeah, it's just, you're right. You use that word catastrophic. There's a lot of assumptions that are detrimental.
So I like to say somebody is good compared to what? They're doing a good job. Well, compared to what? Who are you comparing them to? Sometimes I look at teams and somebody's coming across like an A player because everybody else are D players, right? So they are like, and they're not really all that great either. So again, you're talking some of these small firms, right? They're busy. You guys are in the thick of it in the day to day. And if somebody's on the side just getting work done, you might not be paying attention to the quality of it. Mm-hmm. They're getting the work done, but you don't realize, because maybe nobody's really done that position well before, that it could be so much better, that there could be somebody really helping to drive things for you. And you have no idea just because they're getting the minimum done.
Well, you mentioned small firms, but I think it could happen with really any size company, that it's so big that one department that's supposed to be in charge of it is not actually looking into it. And I'm just thinking of like bigger law firms, of course, and they're just going through the day-to-day normal business, and that associate's like, when do I get that next promotion? And it's all like in articles or blogs, but that doesn't mean there's a set way for that law firm, for example.
Yeah. So, with companies, there's a tendency to just be moving right along, right? And hiring costs a lot of money, both in dollars and also in time. So time is money, and somebody's got to train somebody new. We got to onboard them. We got to get them all their credentials and their computer and their this, their that, their that. And then it can become cumbersome. And so there's times when, all right, let's just not shake things up. Good enough to move on. We don't want to bother with this. And you're not ever getting a better person because you've just sort of plugged somebody in, and it's exhausting and expensive to get somebody new, which is why it's so important to do it correctly on the front end.
Right.
Is culture index the end all be all of everything? No. There's other things that I can't measure that come into play. There's things that happen in people's lives. There's mental health issues. There's all sorts of things that will also affect somebody's job performance. But if I've got data in my hand, I'm going to hedge my bet. I'm going to go with what the numbers tell me. I'm not going to go with the exception to the rule. I'm going to go with what the data supports and hedge my bet on that hire so that I can do it once correctly and not have to keep repeating that process.
This kind of seems similar to that movie called Moneyball, the baseball movie with Brad Pitt, I think, where they use data with the Oakland Raiders. So we can do the same thing. Why not? To improve the team dynamics. The other thing is I noticed, maybe you have with companies, that, well, I believe all or majority of my team members fit my core values of the company. But it's just like you said earlier, having that team member in the right seat and with the right KPIs and, of course, the job description, the duties. So, yeah, it's a distinct that at least I can speak of some of my law firm peers. We're just missing that extra piece that your team provides. Yeah. Now, there's a lot, of course, misconceptions that you just helped debunk for us here. Is there something else, like anything else that you've been concerned about? You've noticed a trend, especially since the pandemic 2020, that you just want to share?
Well, I mean, I think the trends that everybody's noticing in the workplace, right, is we all went remote, and then there's a hesitancy to come back into the office. And so there's this push and pull between employees with some companies saying, you know what, we have this space here. I want you in. Productivity's been down. We need you in. And then there's some employees who are like, I've been working from home for 4 years. Why do you need to micromanage me? Why do I need to be in there? And the truth actually falls somewhere in between. There are people who work better from home. There are people who work better in an office. And so it depends, how collaborative of a position is it? What is the person's personality? Do they get distracted by a noisy neighbor next to them? They actually work better in their home office? Or are they, social people? You might think like, oh, they do better at home. At home, they come up with excuses to become social. So they have more meetings than they need. They're on the phone more than they need. They might even run out and go get a cup of coffee because they just want to leave their house. And so they tend to get less work done at home. So it's not just so simple as like a one size fits all, but it's a big kind of battle going on right now.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I find that even for myself, when we meet in office, we tend to have more meetings, and that's a good thing, but not just because we need to have meetings, for sure. So I try to myself be cognizant of that, but that's a good point.
Well, think about it. When you're at home too, and I've worked remote and I've worked in offices, right? When you're at home, you sometimes have meetings to cover things that you might just say to somebody in passing in an office. You might just ask a question, but now we're remote. So there's a lot to it. It's definitely not a one size fits all.
Yeah, that's true. But I think what it should indicate to HR or anyone involved with hiring personnel, that you just need to have data. You need to be more intentional on who you're bringing onto the team. Otherwise, could be detrimental.
Yeah, and it's kind of ironic that I'm the data person now, because I'm a huge gut instinct person, which has always driven my decision makers. My personality is I'm a feeler. I'm perceptive. I notice things. I pick up on body language. I have a very, very high social presence to me. And for me to say, you know what, Tiffany, that doesn't always hear you the right way, this data helps hold me accountable, because I would be the first one in an interview to go, I don't like them. They're a creep. I don't know why. Just don't like them. Or, oh, we're hitting it off. They're going to be great. Well, are you hiring somebody to go out for drinks with you or to do a certain job?
Yeah, you know what? I've looked at resumes and like, yeah, that looks pretty good. And I'm looking at side by side with another one, like, yeah, that looks pretty good too. It makes it it's such like very difficult, right? But yeah, that's why we need more data points than just the resume. And we've seen in the news here and there, like some people higher up have lied on the resume. So
Oh, I mean,
yeah,
all the time.
yeah,
People do it all the time. And now AI, I mean, on both ends, right? On the applicant side, it could help you put in the words that are going to go through, make it through the searches. And then on the employer side, they're literally trying to pick for words, and you're dehumanizing everything. But when there's tools to help you, I mean, I would use them if I'm hunting for a job, right? I don't blame people, but it's all just we're gamifying this. And that's not helping you get to the best end result.
absolutely. Well, you dropped a lot of gems today, and I hope anyone is watching and this is open your eyes to what could be better for your company. And so please reach out to Tiffany. And on that note, Tiffany, we're going to add your contact information and website in the description box below. But is there any contact information you'd like to share right now?
You can find me at teamsparkadvisors.com or look me up on LinkedIn under Tiffany Slowinski.
All right. Thank you so much, Tiffany.
Thank you, John.
Thank you so much. We'll have you on again, okay?
Okay, sounds
Appreciate
good.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.